All right. This is Patrick Higgins with Back to Birding.
And this is Luke Thompson. Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, I hope everyone's been doing well during this very frigid weather we've had.
Well, not frigid currently. It's like 60 out there, but
thank goodness.
It's about a 60-degree change. Yeah.
Man, it got so cold for a solid 2.5 weeks. Man.
It was crazy. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That sure is. We are going to be talking about how cold fronts and polar vortexes can impact these bird species that we love so much.
And the birding that comes up from it.
Yep, the very exciting birding.
Yeah.
Not too many people are very excited whenever the weather drops down to zero, but birders sometimes are for sure.
Yeah, the stoke was pretty high when I saw that a cold front like that was coming in.
Yep. Well, I guess we can start with some birding that we've done recently. Did you do anything in the past day or two?
I attempted last night to go watch the gulls fly in to roost on Booker T. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure. But I completely and utterly failed because it was just fog, and I haven't gotten out today. I think we're gonna get out after the podcast though. Try and see.
Looking out the window right now, it is only white.
Yeah, I don't like our chances of gulls.
Yeah,
we might just find a hornlark.
There's a mountain back there somewhere, but
there are two mountains back there somewhere, and a river. Can't really see the river at all.
It is not ideal weather in Chattanooga today, but I guess yesterday was the first birding I've done since the warmer weather kind of came back a little bit, and I had a bunch of fun. I had a good time. Went over to Brainerd Levee, which we've talked about here on the podcast, and spent a couple hours there looking for waterfowl mostly, and I had good numbers. I was pretty stoked about it. And I had about 200 overall. Had like over 100 ringnecks, which is pretty good because it's a pretty small body of water in comparison. But
and I think that's a new high count for the levee of ringnecks. And
I'm sure, yeah.
The levee has a bunch of historical data, and it's one of the most. It might have the most checklists of any location in the county. Or one of the locations with the most checklists. So
I did see that its species count is now equal with Baylor.
With the spotted towhee, yeah.
Yep.
So formerly Baylor was third in species total, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's up to second, because
he's getting giddy, everyone.
yeah, I'm stoked. There's not a chance that I'm gonna catch first. I think I had a dream that I found a first for Chester Frost, and it was like really sad. So I'm never birding Chester again.
That's so backwards. Oh my goodness.
But because Baylor has so few checklists compared to the levee, it's ranked as second instead of just a tie at second.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or I presume that's why it's ranked at second if you look at the eBird totals.
Well, good for you.
Now we just need to... So someone just reported, as of like 2 minutes ago, horned lark on a random field. And you know what place has random fields?
Baylor.
Baylor has random fields. So
yeah,
we're going to go find a horned lark, I decided, on campus.
Yeah, I was hoping for a snow bunting over at Brainerd. A lot of exposed gravel all the way down there, and I had a lot of sparrows and other little guys feeding on it, so I was like really hoping, but don't know if this is ideal time, but with the cold front, who knows.
Really, what I've been thinking is Lapland longspur.
For those that don't know, horned lark and Lapland longspur are pretty common in West Tennessee, but down in southern Tennessee and especially East Tennessee, both of those species are rare. Honestly.
We are in the worst spot in the entire state for both of those species.
I would not doubt it.
Both of those species love open fields, and
farmland.
Yeah.
Is typically where you'll find those kind of guys. Not really just like tall grass fields.
Yeah, and we don't have that much great type of habitat for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sort of surrounded by mountains in all directions, which apparently, even though they're not big mountains, seems to be a barrier, because I think horned lark actually breeds literally one mountain over. Like, I can drive 15, 20 minutes from my house to the west, or like northwest, and I live on one of these ridges, and I could get horned lark pretty reliably. But if I drive the same direction or the opposite direction for the same amount of time, so that would put me at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
I've birded the crap out of Baylor for several years now, and I've never had a horned lark.
Yeah.
Which is...
I mean, we know the geography of Hamilton County does, like, impact the birding for sure. Like,
1,000%.
I mean, it's one of the better counties in the state for birding.
I wonder, so... I think the reason that it has such a high species total is not just geography. I think it's the combination of having, it does have a wide variety of habitats because of the river and some geography that leads to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a big part of it is just birders.
Yeah.
There are a lot of birders here. I mean, just using birding app within like a 30-kilometer radius or something like that, there's 35 right now. And, you know, that probably means that there's about anywhere from 50 to 100 people that are out in the field decently regularly, which...
I mean, that's definitely a major factor, and something that I think as birding increases in popularity, like, more stuff is going to be showing up because there's more eyes.
Yeah, and I think that's really why Hamilton County has such a high species total.
That makes sense.
More than, say... I mean, yes, we do have decent habitat compared to a lot of the places with cities.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense also for like Shelby County, which is Memphis, why they have such an incredible species total, and like it's basically the same thing.
And
like,
Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, well, of course, the incredible Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, so Jeff Wilson was this legendary Tennessee birder who died in the past 10 or 15 years, I guess.
2013, yeah.
Yeah, and he found everything.
Yeah, he's known as like the father of Tennessee birding by most folks here, and that's just because he was incredible, and the number of state firsts with his name attached are just...
It's ludicrous.
Like, unreal. But yeah, Memphis is obviously an urbanized area, lots of people there, and there's just a crap ton of species, but also because of the geography. So it's like a similar situation probably.
Yeah, and it's on the Mississippi River. It has a lot of habitat, and that really, that combination has put it at the top.
Yeah.
You have something like Lake County, which doesn't even have a checklist every day, which is insanity, because that is Lake and Humphreys County. Both of them don't have very many checklists per day. And those are would be the top two.
Yeah.
Lake County is...
I'm sure both of those counties are like up there in the top 5 at least.
So, Lake County is number 2.
Even despite the lack of birding, so...
Yeah, so that's what I say, like, Lake County might end up just becoming number 1 if there was better coverage, because...
Yeah, and Lake County is where Reelfoot Lake is, and the northwest corner of the state.
And it's got the Mississippi River, so lots of migration and lots of pretty amazing birds end up showing up there. Yeah. And
most recently, well, I don't know most recently, but the first flamingo that Tennessee had was there a few years ago. That was before the explosion, so that was a remarkable bird.
And then they've had, I mean, just a bunch of insane records. I mean, ruff is an annual species in that county. And Caracara has happened there. Yeah.
I mean, way too many to name.
Yeah, we can't even scratch the surface of Lake County birding. But
and same for Humphreys that you did just mention. The geography helps it. It's sitting there right at the Duck River area, which is
in my personal opinion, sort of stealing Victor and Ruben Stoll's opinion here, the single best hotspot in the state, or birding location in the state, I would say, is the Duck River unit of the Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge.
I would second that. It's just, if you go out there for a day or a week, you'll probably come out with the same opinion, because it's just, man, the volume of birds is just almost incomparable to another spot in Tennessee. So it's just tremendous, and
it's underbirded, like
significantly. Yeah,
and
it's in a very rural area, honestly.
So it doesn't get birded frequently, and the people who bird it the most are the Stolls. And that hotspot has somewhere, and I think it's 306 species, unless something has been added recently. So
yeah, I don't know. I think what was Arctic Tern, the last major thing there?
Little Gull, I think, was the last edition.
Really?
I believe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Ruben and Victor Stoll and Alan Troyer, that's their stomping grounds out there.
Yeah.
So we can thank them for many of the incredible records that come from there.
Like a June ruff. Ruff is this Asian species of shorebird that, and shorebirds, for non-birders and beginners out there, they are a group of birds that love to just poke in the mud. A lot of them breed on Arctic tundra or in ponds, typically wetland species. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of variation in habitat there, but they pretty much just like some shallow water, whether that be in grass or a marsh.
So, for shorebirds specifically, I've read a decent amount of papers on this. The habitat preference is typically less than 25% vegetation cover. That can vary with species. There's some species like Wilson snipe that totally prefer vegetation cover, but the majority prefer less than 25% vegetation cover.
Well, and some species that are even pretty closely related, like, for instance, long-billed versus short-billed dowitcher, how some prefer more inland areas and some prefer more coastal areas. So but it is atypical. There is, like, they'll have different like microhabitats or niches that they're choosing within the broad habitat of generally a mudflat. For sure.
So somewhere, some might be poking in something super deep and like foraging with longer bills, poking into the mud, whereas something like a plover will be on the drier stuff, running around looking for stuff that it can pick off the surface.
And that's just so fascinating to me. I love to study those guys, because you have the phalaropes that'll swim around in the water and pick stuff off the surface, and then you have stilts that put their stilt sandpipers, I should say, that put their entire heads under the water when they feed. And then you have ruddy turnstones, which like super rocky areas, and it's interesting to see those little niches and how they affect the abundance and regular occurrence of those different species. But all of those are in the same realm of shorebird,
which is kind of a catch-all term in a way. If you look at the taxonomy, they're all in the order Corygiformes, but there's I can't even remember exactly what's in between. But you think of like a plover and sandpiper, you call that a shorebird, but there's actually taxonomically there's a group of birds in between that, between plovers and sandpipers. So they're not like directly closely related to each other. But
just in the realm of Corygiformes, that is kind of similar to see the different niches occupied by those different species. But anyways,
that was a tangent.
Yeah, quite that. But
what were we talking about? Cold front birding.
yeah. Well, we're talking about at Brainerd Levee, I guess, was where we kind of left off. But yeah, I had definitely more waterfowl than I've ever had on a solo checklist, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah. That has been a trend, is waterfowl. So with the cold front, and that's solely because of the cold front, really is why waterfowl have been showing up in good numbers. When stuff ices up farther north, waterfowl push south. And so, it's been a warm winter so far, so a lot of waterfowl hasn't moved south. And then once it freezes over, I could see that on Baylor Lake. As soon as I was able to get down here, I wasn't able to drive for a couple days just because my road was completely ice.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was able to get down to Baylor Lake, it was, mallard numbers had doubled, more geese, and then black ducks, hooded mergansers. It went from, I would usually be getting like 2 species of duck on a checklist to I was getting 7 or 8 every time.
Yeah, and that same concept transfers over to more terrestrial birds, I guess you would call it. When the ground freezes and they can't feed on seeds or insects that would be out normally, they also will push down. So in the same way, if the water freezes, whenever the ground freezes, a lot of finches and similar species will.
Sparrows and what the ground freezing, presumably, and snow cover, stuff like that, creates a really interesting phenomenon where you can, like, you're driving along roads and there are just hordes of birds on the roadsides just because that's the area where it might be no snow cover or less snow cover and in the sun. So basically any sunny, relatively open patch of ground is just covered in birds. And one species specifically that I would highlight with that is fox sparrow. That's a bird that's not particularly easy outside of an area where it's snowing. It's like you can get them, right? But they're not abundant. They're not easy. As soon as it snows, it's like, where did all of these come from? Because Tim and I had I don't even know, 40 or something on our day.
Goodness gracious.
And Tim had a flock of 36 just in one location in Marion County, which is one county to the west of us.
Wow. And
these are big sparrows. Almost, I guess they're somewhere in between the size of, say, like a white-throated sparrow and a towhee.
Yeah. And we did talk about them actually last episode. And they have a pretty neat gradient in their phenotypes from the east to west of their natural range.
We have the prettiest ones, the red ones.
I agree. I think we have the prettiest song sparrows as well.
We don't have the gnarliest song sparrows though, so we're losing. The Aleutian Island song sparrows are like twice the size of ours.
Those SoCal song sparrows have a beak bigger than their head.
or is that fox sparrow?
I could be wrong.
I think it's fox sparrow. The thick-billed fox sparrow has the.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's fun.
That's a gross beak right there. Yeah, but there's just so many sparrows pushing out to the road sides, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's definitely something you can notice casually. Like if you're just, I don't know. The most I've ever noticed that is in western portions of the state and in Kentucky, when driving down, back roads in farmland. That's where the majority of the long spurs and pipits will hang out. So that's definitely easy to catch on to, even if you're not an avid birder. But
yeah, and I'm even when it snows, just seeing all the sparrows come out. I've had people talk to me about that are not birders at all, just noticing that there's so many more birds out and available to see on the ground. I had the best experience with spotted towhee, the spotted towhee on campus that I have.
Still hanging out.
Still hanging out. But I got to see it for 30 seconds sitting out in the open.
That's awesome.
In beautiful sunlight with the beast of the scope that's being lent to me by Tim Lenz.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, I'm really happy that bird is sticking around. Is that not a county first?
That's a county first. It's in East Tennessee first.
Really?
First east of Nashville, as far as I know.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, super exciting. And I'm glad I was able to have Luke Thompson private tours on as my guide for that.
Yeah, I should have been like, give me $30.
Yeah.
No.
Charge at the gate. You could have made $1 by now for sure.
I mean, I could have. People would have come out, but I would have felt like a horrible person if I was like, listen, there's this rare bird that I didn't even find.
Yeah.
If you give me $10.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because then I would have to do it for my friends too, to keep people from being angry.
Yeah, just put an age cap on it. If you are over the age of 18.
Or a salary cap.
Yeah.
If you make more than X dollars an hour.
A year.
A year. You have to pay.
Anyways.
That next rare bird that shows up on campus, that's going.
Yeah, definitely. That's one way.
If you're a student at any institution, you don't have to pay.
Yeah, that might encourage people sneaking onto campus, but
yeah, I'm not going to do that by any means.
That's funny. But yeah, I guess we can actually get to talking about the cold front stuff a little bit more. What kind of birding did you do, and did you have any good luck?
Yeah, so I mean the initial birding that I did was on campus, and well, the first thing that I noticed is Baylor Lake was almost completely frozen over. So Baylor Lake is a slough where two creeks are going into the Tennessee River, and it was completely frozen over almost. Like it was pretty crazy. There was a couple pockets of open water that were just packed full with waterfowl. Mm-hmm. So I had mallard, like good numbers of mallard, and then I hadn't had a black duck this year, and I had black duck, hooded merganser, and then green-winged teal. I think on the first day was happening, and then walking around, that was when on the first day that I went out in the cold was the day that I got the spotted towhee out in the open, but I also got just a bunch of sparrows on the ground. I got a good footage of fox sparrow just hopping around feeding. So
that's great. Did you also get frostbite? Was that?
My toes were quite cold when I was. So what happened with the towhee is I scanned with the scope, and it wasn't down in the cut, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk through and see if I don't see anything. Tree sparrow was kind of on the mind.
I want one here so bad. Goodness.
And I didn't see the bird, so I was like, I'm just gonna leave the scope here on the trail and walk through. And then I saw the bird flush up, and I was like, okay, it's still here. I didn't sort of wait for it. I just walked into the forest, which was completely dead, but it was really sick, honestly, just to see an area of campus I've been on so many times covered in snow.
Yeah.
And walked back, and then lo and behold, the towhee was just sitting up, just there for like a minute and a half.
Man.
And the scope was like 100+ meters away, and I would flush the bird if I walked to it. So I looked at it in the binoculars, and I was pretty stoked on it. But then I walked back and grabbed the scope, and then I was sitting, and the sun was sort of starting to come down, or it was getting close to that time. So most of the shadows were pretty long, and I was in the shadow, and cold, very cold. And I was just sitting and waiting, and it wasn't popping up. And then I heard a little bit of movement, saw a little bit of movement right where the bird had dropped down. And I used my newfound skill of whistling, and I literally just whistled like some bird call. I can't even remember what it was, and it popped up, and it sat up for 30 seconds, and I got to watch it in the scope. It was insane.
Yeah, I got about as good of a picture as you typically do of that bird whenever I saw that.
Hey, I'm a photographer.
I texted him recently and said he's inspiring me with his incredible photography skills. They are increasing by a pixel per picture at this rate. So
I don't know. I had some decent like pictures and videos of stuff. Through
oh yeah, the now that you're using Tim's scope, you actually did have a great video of those teal on ice. That was really cool.
Yeah, but then yesterday I sent you a picture of what I assure you it was a Pacific loon, but
yeah, it was just a black dot on what looked like water, but I couldn't actually make it out.
Yeah, it was it was rough. I don't have a camera, so I do the best I can with my iPhone, my horribly cracked iPhone 7, and whatever optics I have at the time.
Oh my gosh!
It's.
Speaking of pictures, I forgot to send you a picture of a Jesus pipit that I saw at Brainerd Levee.
What
yesterday.
is a Jesus pipit?
A pipit walking on water, but it was on ice.
So that was another thing that I didn't mention with Baylor is Baylor never gets pipits.
Yeah.
Like almost never gets pipits. I get a flyover every couple weeks during the winter and
I had a pipit whenever you showed me the black ducks.
Yeah, well, why?
Why?
Because there was a stupid amount of pipits. Like I had hell, the flock could still be here. I haven't checked since like a day or two ago when it was still here, but there was a flock of something in the range of it was varying between anywhere from 45 to 75 birds on one of the fields here, which rarely ever happens. Only second time I've ever had pipits on the ground on campus, and they would be like out on the ice on Baylor Lake too, and failing to walk.
Yeah, yeah. They walk a little bit chicken-esque, so I think their intense head movement kind of makes them fall over sometimes. But it was silly to watch, and even watching the some of the waterfowl come to land, it's almost like they couldn't tell what was water and what was ice, because some of them would land in the water and the other ones would just hit the ice and slide for 10 meters.
Yeah, I remember seeing some mallards really struggling to walk on the ice.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You feel like these animals that are always outside would just inherently be good at doing stuff outside, but when it comes to ice, it seems that everything struggles.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but yeah, I birded Baylor for a couple days. I had the big group of pipits, including one that had like white on the head and the wings. It was like a crazy looking thing, like partially albino, whatever the proper term is. I don't know, but
oh yeah, you did show that to me or told me about it. I mean,
I think I may have sent you a picture that was like maybe half a pixel.
I wouldn't be surprised. But.
And I mean, I couldn't get good footage of it even with the scope because it was through a fence and it was really finicky with the focusing on through the camera. But it was really sick to see that. I've never seen a pipit like that before, and I've seen thousands of pipits. So pipits are these like small, kind of sparrow-sized ground birds with a thin bill, and they're like brown on top and kind of streaky and buffy below. They like open ground, and they breed on like tundra habitat, whether that be Arctic tundra or alpine tundra.
And this is American pipit.
American pipit, yeah. We only have one regularly occurring species of pipit, at least in this part of the country. Up in Alaska, you get red-throated pipit pretty regularly on those islands, and then that'll come down the Pacific coast
occasionally. But,
I think it's annual on the Pacific coast.
Then, I don't know anything about sprogs, but
sprogs, yeah.
I think we do.
Tennessee has state records. The last one, 2022, I believe.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was that recent.
Yeah. It's probably a bird that a couple winter in the state every year. It's just not found because it's some remote field.
Yeah.
But
I think typically those are flyovers.
Yeah. That's a prairie breeding species. It's a very central species, and, they winter, again, sort of Texas and sort of the central area of the country, and then they breed farther north than that. So, but American pipit, they breed on Arctic and alpine tundra. So I've seen them breeding on the tops of mountains in Colorado, I think Wyoming, and in Alberta and British Columbia at the tops of mountains.
Wow.
So and then they migrate down to mud flats and open fields. And apparently, if it's icy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the middle of a forest. I saw one.
What?
So pipits are always on fields.
Yeah.
And mud flats.
Flat ground.
Flat open ground. So, but with the ice, so many got pushed down, I guess. And kid you not, there was a pipit like walking on the edge of the road at Chester Frost, which is like kind of near habitat. I mean, there was like only like 50 feet of trees between it and normal pipit habitat.
Yeah.
But like it was walking on the side of the road in the forest, and then it like flushed, and it was like even farther from normal pipit habitat in like underbrush. And I was like, what am I looking at? It was crazy.
What in the world?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, we've had a good push of waterfowl here in the past week. I haven't really been keeping up with too much of the rest of the state, but I just got, thanks to Tim Lynn's lifer white-winged scoter.
Oh, that was a lifer for you?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And, surf scoter was with those as well, and both of those were state birds. So I have swept the scoters in the state now. So
have you swept them for county?
No, I don't have black here.
Ooh.
So interested, but that was white-winged was the last one I needed for life. So I'm stoked about that. Really exciting, and there were 8 of them, so that was pretty cool.
8 white-winged, 1 surf.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I almost died on my way to seeing them because the trail was completely iced over.
Yeah, I fell and ate crap while I was walking down there later. So.
I was in my clothes for class, and I was attempting to run because I was going to be late to class.
Oh,
and
you idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I almost ate it so many times, just catching myself. At one point, I sat on my heels and just slid on my feet down the trail, navigating with my hands. But it was worth it. Got both of those scoters, state birds, and a lifer. So
yeah,
very exciting. But
yeah,
I haven't totally been keeping up with the rest of the state. I know there's at least 2 long-tailed ducks here. There's been a regularly occurring one in Shelby County in Memphis, and it's actually a different one than the one that was there over December.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I'm hoping for one of those. It's definitely something I'm really hoping for before the end of this winter.
Yeah. So these ducks we're talking about, by the way, scoters and long-tailed duck, these are all sort of what you would call sea ducks. I think all of them breed in tundra-type habitat. I could be completely wrong about that, though. So feel free to correct me and be like, wow, you are stupid. And then they winter to typically pretty massive expanses of open water, mostly the ocean, but also Great Lakes has a lot of scoters. And then with icing events, they push south.
And they are annual. All 3 species,
and
just
long-tailed
inland.
duck.
Yeah, and long-tailed duck is considered a sea duck as well. So, still very cool to see.
Yeah, and out of pure laziness, that surf scoter was. I saw it later in the day looking for goals, and that surf scoter was my county bird, which is incredible because I've been birding here for a long time. I just don't chase stuff that much. What's painful is actually I saw what was almost certainly a surf scoter, but I was with one of my friends and she had to go to work.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I had a black scoter on one side of this raft, and then there was another scoter on the other side, and I couldn't identify it because she had to go to work, and I had to take her to work, and then
that's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, and that was during my county big year too, so that would have been even. Dang! Wow.
But yeah, in the past day or two, there's been a push of swans down here. We have what appear to be wild mute swans.
And then there's...
And tundra. And potentially, I haven't actually seen a report for a trumpeter.
I haven't seen a report for trumpeter. I know there was 11 tundra swans out at Duck River Unit, and then there was one in Davidson County. I'd bet there's probably a tundra up in the Hiwassee area.
Yeah, or Saudi Lake area, probably.
Or on Baylor's campus right now. I haven't checked Baylor Lake. Baylor Lake is in that direction, so yeah. But yeah, well,
and those are similar. With the cold front, big push of swans is typical, but mute swans are getting increasingly harder now that I guess AOS determined that most are not countable. But we do have some wild ones that make it down here sometimes, but I don't have a wild one for the state.
But yeah, well, what I was saying with the Scoters a little bit ago, I was going there for goals, and that's another thing that the cold front really impacted is huge pushes of goal numbers. And I know you had some cool experience with that.
Yeah. So, I guess last Friday, I had seen reports of 2 Iceland Thayers and Kumlins, which I was stoked about in both subspecies, and 2 Glaucus, potentially 3 Glaucus, at the Benton County landfill.
And so all of these are northern species of gulls that are paler than our normal, regularly occurring species.
Yeah, especially Glaucus. That guy gets stark white in some plumage. So very neat. And both of those were going to be lifers, and obviously state birds. And I had a free weekend, and it was in the heart of the cold snap, so it was 8 degrees whenever I was looking for those birds.
Yeah, so he drove 3.5 hours. He grabbed the scope from 4? Well, 7 in the day, 3.5 hours out, right?
Yeah, it was. So I tried to get up there and then stay the night at the landfill, but my car was a little unhappy with the level of cold. So I decided to stop in Nashville, and it took 2.5 hours to get there.
Did you just sleep in the car at Nashville?
No, my sister lives in Smyrna, so I stayed with her, luckily. But
got a bed instead of a car.
Yeah, definitely nice. But I got up early and then did 3.5 hours the rest of the way. So it was actually 6 hours there, and then ended up being like 6.5, 7 on the way back.
Just because the cold?
Yeah, just because I was driving under the speed limit the whole time.
Because of ice and snow.
Yeah, well, the interstate systems and the highways had no ice on them. But as soon as you got off of those into a side road or a neighborhood or any kind of back road, it was just a solid block of ice. And luckily, to get to the landfill was pretty tame. I didn't have to deal with anything dangerous. And once I got there, I was able to find the Glaucus pretty much right away. Both of them, they are the second largest gull in the world, so they were...
And, like, very white.
Yeah.
So they're easy to find.
Exactly. They were towering over everything, and I have a very neatly bicolored bill, which was pretty. But to find the Iceland was a little bit harder, especially the Thayers, because that one can look nearly identical to a herring as a first year, I think.
I'm of the opinion. This is probably a hot take, but I think most gulls, there should be some lumping going on in the Loris genus, because like
instead of splitting or what?
Like lumping straight from what they are right now, because if you look at it,
oh really?
there is so much hybridization going on.
Yeah.
That it just doesn't make sense in my mind to keep them as separate species. But that also begs the question: what is a species?
Yeah, I know we talked about this in one of the earlier episodes with specifically gulls, but we've had so much experience with them in the past 2 weeks that it's refreshed on our minds. But it's interesting though, because so many gull species are able to reproduce with viable offspring, and whenever that happens, that like checks a major box that they're the same species. But as adults individually, these birds can look completely different. So it's so interesting, and definitely a hot topic.
There's no clear-cut line.
We just use the information that we can observe and test right now to come up with our best idea of what the truth is about these birds. But I know specifically on the West Coast, you probably have the most interbreeding between these species.
So the biggest thing out west is what they call Olympic gulls. That's Western X glaucous winged gull.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also Cook Inlet gull, which is Herring X glaucous winged. And then there's every imaginable combination of anything.
And we do have some on the East Coast over here. I think Appledores is herring and lesser blackback.
Mm-hmm. I mean, kelp gull which showed up in Louisiana for a while. Now there's a little small hybrid swarm over there of kelp and herring gull.
In Louisiana?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think there's like pure kelps anymore. They're not seen. But there's I've seen checklists with 10 hybrids.
Really? Well,
so I was talking
I know that one in South Texas was a pure.
Yeah.
Wow, I've not heard that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was talking with my friend David Hawley about this, and he thinks that he thinks that herring gull isn't a thing. Because you look at Iceland
that's a
gull.
hot take. Yeah.
And then it'll breed with anything. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I leaned more towards David's opinion on all this.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like to have an opinion at all is a little premature, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we.
In your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, you shouldn't have an opinion.
That in itself is opinion.
Yeah, it's an oxymoron, but I don't know. We're using our best guesses on all this, and that's all science really is just trying to understand the different phenomena and things we're observing and trying to make sense of it all.
Isn't that just what life is?
Yeah.
I recently learned that, well, not really learned. I guess I hadn't thought about it as much. I've been talking about perception in one of my history classes here. Our lives are a lie, essentially,
Jeez, where are you about to go with this?
Well, we're just processing a small bit of what, the raw data of the world, and that's what we perceive. So, and then different things make us perceive, like our genetics and stuff like that makes us perceive things differently, and our experiences in life make us perceive things differently. So everything that we're witnessing is relatively subjective.
And we also know that electrons function differently based on whether they are being perceived or not. So,
really,
isn't that something? Yeah. There's a little quantum physics for you, but we can get back to birding.
Yeah.
But yeah, with these goals, it's really fascinating, and it causes major discussion about identification, just especially this time of year, and with vagrants. So I did end up getting both subspecies of Iceland and those two glaucus, so I was really stoked about that, and the drive was worth it. But we're also seeing those two species across the state in different places. And
speaking of tonight, we're gonna get them.
Yeah, we're gonna perceive them, right?
Yeah. So Booker T. Washington State Park has a view of, well, sometimes has a good view, sometimes doesn't, because it's it fluctuates a lot where these birds go. But there's a massive flock of roosting gulls that come in to roost, and I think I had over 10,000, nearly 11,000 birds conservatively estimated 3 or 4 days ago, and then the day after I had 12,500.
Yeah, the majority of those being ring-billed.
Every single bird except for like in the range of 25 to like 40 herring gulls and 4 lesser blackbacks.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting with, I don't know, I feel like you do notice patterns in vagrants of these bigger Lars gulls following the herrings rather than the ringbills. So I know that in West Tennessee at that landfill there was huge numbers of herring and even lesser blackback, and then you get numbers of the other rare stuff. But whenever you do have so many ring-billed, it seems like there might be a little less association with the other stuff.
I mean, but the thing is we are getting decent numbers of herring gulls, which is what gives me hope that there is.
Yeah, I mean, 25 is definitely higher than normal for here.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and I think 25 is low. We have put no effort into it, the count.
Yeah, as soon as we get up around the 100 range, I'm stoked to see what happens. But
I don't know if that's ever happened in Hamilton County.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know that ring-billed count was county high.
Times 3.
Yeah, so that's exciting for sure. And
lesser blackback high count previously in the county was 1, and we had at least 4 birds.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. But yeah, so exciting gulls in and around the area right now.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, well, even beyond, looking at the rarity part of it, what seeing that many birds fly to roost is like truly a natural spectacle, I would say. 'Cause
absolutely.
I mean, you're seeing like 50 plus birds fly by a second through your scope view, and like the whole other bank of the river is just covered in birds, and it's like it's really insane. And like it was so cool that first night, like the sun was setting over the water and reflecting off of it, and then you just have these just gobs of ring-billed gulls coming in as like over these like pastel pink and orange waters, and there's just thousands and thousands of birds pouring into this one spot with massive rafts of ducks too. It's just incredible. It was an incredible experience.
Man, yeah, that's lovely. I know being in the moment during that kind of thing is definitely valuable, even more so than getting the correct number, Getting
the correct number or getting the rare bird,
right?
I would say, because I think when you're doing that, you get stressed, and then you lose, the
magic.
The forest for the trees is the metaphor, I would say. You're looking for this one bird amongst this spectacle, and you just ignore the fact that there's a spectacle because. And I was noticing myself doing that, and then I had to step back and be like, wait, I'll see a glaucous gull one day. This doesn't matter. Really, I should really just appreciate the insanity of what's going on.
Yeah, that's something I think it's valuable to keep that mindset at the front of your mind when you're going into a day of birding.
Because then it can end up being just a disappointment of a day. And I've noticed that happen with myself. Honestly, on CBCs, like stuff like that, it can end up being disappointing at the end because you missed one common bird, even if you had an incredible day.
I think recreational birding, that's not for like an organized count or something. I feel like if you're able to appreciate all the common species, if you see a bunch of mockingbirds and cardinals, it's like, well, heck yeah. I was like, I got to see all these species that not everybody in the world gets to see, And that's definitely not easy to always do.
And
Whenever
I think that's something that's helped me with that is just sitting back and looking at those common species, trying to notice things I haven't before.
Yeah.
And like see their behavior, because you're always going to see something new,
Yeah.
even if it's something you've seen 10,000 times.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an endless abundance of behavioral tactics and, differences in plumage and all kinds of things that you can learn. You'll never walk away empty-handed if you spend time with the birds,
Yeah, I think that's something that's so beautiful about birding is that you can do that. And I think, and that's some of the beauty of birding that I think can easily get lost, that we're all guilty of when we are obsessively looking for that next list, bird on the list.
And it's hard to strike that balance because
it's incredibly hard.
It is so exhilarating to find something rare, but if you are only doing that, then it almost spoils the heart of it,
Yeah.
So
it's a really hard balance to strike, and I definitely have not struck that balance. I think few people have, but
but we hope everyone has stayed safe on the icy roads. No matter where you are.
I did have to try and help get a car unstuck and fail up at Hiawassee.
I'm hoping my girlfriend doesn't listen to this part of the podcast. I don't know that she listens at all, but on my way back from the landfill, a yellow-headed blackbird was reported at the Duck River unit found by the Stoles.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go see it, and I was on a very icy road in the woods that was hilly, and I got to a portion that was downhill with a turn at the bottom and a bridge going over a creek, a very small bridge, and I just had a bad feeling about it, but I went anyways, and so I started going down, and then I just didn't follow the road. I just started going towards the water and off the bridge, and obviously not very practiced with ice driving, so I slammed on the brakes at first, and then just like completely locked up on me, and so then I changed gears and hit the gas and was able to save it. But that kind of experience will make you turn the radio all the way down and put both hands on the wheel for the rest of the drive. So I did not pursue the yellow-headed blackbird after that moment.
Annabella's gonna have your head.
Yeah. Yeah, she did not want me to even go because of that, and then I pushed my luck a little bit. But that's so far a secret from her.
Tim was definitely feeling a little stressed when we did we checked out the lake north of us, and I think I drove on more ice than pavement.
Yeah.
And
dude, it's a little scary whenever we're not
I
used to it.
was getting a little stressed, but I had the stupid 18-year-old confidence, and Tim was like feeling some stress. I know, and. But we made it. So, but
the links we go to for the birds.
Yeah. We got some goals to see.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we might try and snag one or two before the light fades out completely on us. But
yeah,
we wish everyone a happy birding until our next
episode.
Meeting,
Hopefully, we got someone to interview next time. So.
Yeah, we're gonna try and line something up. We still have some good people on the roster, and we're adding people consistently. So
now we just need to start taking some people off so we from interviewing them.
But yeah, feel free, any of our listeners, to reach out to us with any questions. Even just casual conversation. We would love to.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, get on the phone or anything.
And if anyone has any fun stories they'd like to share,
and if anyone wants to come out to
Chattanooga,
Tennessee, or in Chattanooga, or the eastern portion of the
US, if you're out in our area, we'd love to come bird with you. I actually birded with one of our listeners for the first time. His name is John. He's a guy from Colorado, and he was out in Atlanta. And he found our podcast when trying to figure out places in the Chattanooga area, and he is the only person that has spotted towhee but no red-shouldered hawk on his Tennessee state list, I'm sure. But yeah, we had a great time. So
we just want to encourage that for sure, because we love hearing from y'all, and we want to make those connections. So
yeah, for sure.
But until next time, folks,
we'll see ya.
Yep, see ya.